Welcome to our podcast, Learn to Teach for Success. My name is Alain Faber. This podcast is about learning. How do we learn to be able to be a better collaborator in our society? Second, about teaching, how to become a better teacher, but all of us are teachers in many ways, and how to promote success for ourselves and others around us. We're going to have three topics today. I'm going to just check to make sure we have sound for today. That's perfect. The three topics about learning is when you have a classroom and you start a new year, there are two things you need to learn. You need to learn about your students, and your students need to learn about you. So that's the first topic. The second topic will be about teaching and the whole idea that you need to promote why students are there with you and what are the type of learning they need to expect to do. Because once their baselines are there, so much easier for people to be involved and feel that they can participate and learn from you. The third part will be about success, and success will be about how to use the present moment to be there for each other in a classroom or as part of a team. So these are the topics we have tonight. For people joining me, podcast is my next pet project where I'm trying to get better at something I did not know about. So we are at podcast number 2. If you don't know me, my name is Alain Faber, and I've been a teacher studying my 25th year. I was a geologist for 5 years. My one word, so what I'm passionate about is about learning, but also how I can help others learn so that they can teach others so that everybody can succeed as part of a community. So that's what we're working on with this podcast. So welcome tonight. So my first topic today is about building community. If you're part of a team, if you are a teacher in the school, even part of your family, it's very important to learn about the people that are part of your community. And the reason why I say that is if you don't get to know the people in the community, it's so much harder to feel that you're belonging to a group. And if you don't feel like that you belong, it's much harder to collaborate. On the opposite side, if you are in a situation as part of a team, in a classroom or in your family, and that you feel that you are people want to know about who you are to make sure that you're the best version of yourself. If you get to know other members of your teams, your family members, or your classroom, then there's a stronger sense of belonging. And it's so much easier to feel like collaborating, so much easier to feel like you want to be part of the group, share ideas, so that together you can grow as a community. And that's why I think learning about the people in the group is so important. So I'm going to divide this segment in two parts. The first one is when you learn to be part of a community, it's always about two parts you need to learn. You need to learn about yourself, and you also need to learn about others. So if you say, well, what does it mean to, so I'm going to start with ourselves because it's so often we forget to see how important we are as part of a community. So learning, teaching others, or making sure that you have others learn about who you are is very important, especially if you're a leader of your community, leader of your team, or in a classroom, or even a leader in your family. People need to know who you are. They need to know your values. They need to know what you stand for. They need to, you need to communicate to them the wealth of experiences you have that makes who you are, but also for them to feel that if they decide to follow you, that in some ways it is safe. So in my science class today, what I did about teaching others to get to know me, I had for my science class I had a few things. One is some memorabilia. When I was a geologist, I had some minerals, some rocks, so everybody can relate to rocks and minerals. I also had a log that was cut by a beaver. When I was a geologist, I used to cross a beaver dam to get to a project. There was also a telescope that I had in here at home, and I shared with them my passion about nature, about geology and astronomy, and give examples of why I think it's important. So that created a baseline of who I was as a person. Then for the students, when they say, okay, so I'm in a new class, and if you're part of a team, you look at your leader and say, okay, here's a leader. Why? So does he have anything that I can learn from that person? So in the science class, they know that I was a scientist and I've been teaching science for 25 years. So that means that I know what I'm talking about. So that takes care of some worries for some people. If you're part of a team, if the team leader can share with you his or her experiences to see what they've learned, but also mention the fact that there's things that they can learn with each other, then they will feel that they can belong to you. They can belong to your team, to their team. So in my classroom, I also share that even though I know all the information in English, no, in science, what happened is the second time or third time, I think second time I teach the course in English. I've always taught the science course in French, so it's something new for me. So I told them that as we learn different things, I may need their help with language. Many of my students have English as their second, third, or sometimes fourth language. So they all know that we're here. I'm there to help them, but they can also count on me. So I'm there to help them, and they can feel I'm there to help them as well. There you go. The second part, when you're part of a team, is about making sure that you know who your team members are. So if you're part of a team, they're the team members. If you're a teacher, they're your students. If you are a family member, then it could be kids, it could be partners, niece, nephews, extended family, or even adopted family members. So what happened is you have to make sure that as a member of a team, you need to share what you feel is important about yourself. So for example, we had a quick chat today. My classes were not very long, 45 minutes. Tomorrow we'll have more time. I'm going to ask them, for example, what are their favorite topics in science. Then as the days go by, I will see what are the things that are easy for you, things that you're struggling with. That's related to the topic as a teacher, but also what's happening at home sometimes. Not wanting a big, necessarily to know everything, but it's important to know, okay, you were part of a team, you played a sport, how did it go yesterday? Yesterday you look a bit tired, but today you look much more alert. That means you must have rested well. So noticing the people in your team will, first of all, make you get to know them. And the more we get to know each other, then the more the communication can happen. And interestingly enough, if you take the time to talk with your team members, at some point they will share information for you. For example, in my family, if every day I ask them what they've learned today, anything exciting that has happened, they share information. Sometimes if I'm tired, and I forget to ask them the question, what do? They come to me and say, oh, guess what I learned today, or guess what I did today. So they know that there's a consistency in wanting to know about them, and they know that you care. And if it happens that sometimes these are not always the most exciting, or you don't have always the energy, then you can count on them to be there for you. So that's how we can work together as part of a team. Because keep in mind that if you want to have a community where people feel they belong in the team, then everybody involved need to say, okay, we are here for a reason. Let's make sure that we know who we are dealing with. That will make sure that people feel noticed, feel maybe not necessarily understood, but people in the team are just willing to know that you are okay. We cannot always take care of every single issues of everybody, but just everybody feeling that the team members are there for you often is a good start. So that is my first segment for today about learning. My second topic about teaching is the whole idea is if you have a team or a classroom or even a family, it's important to share with them the reason why you are doing what you're doing. So basically, your why. So if you're part of a team, it's important that as a leader, you share with the team what are the expectations, what are the goals for the team. Once the goals are outlined, then it's so much easier to focus, but it's also much easier to help each other. If you look at my classroom for science, for example, I outlined the fact that, okay, here's a course outline of what we're going to look into. I use the different objects I brought in the classroom to so they can have the hands-on activities. And I say, okay, we're here together so that we can learn science, but not all sciences because it's such a big field of study. I said we're going to learn about four things this year. We're going to learn about ecosystems and sustainability. We're going to learn about electricity circuits and the use of electricity in our home. I said we're going to look into astronomy and not just learning about the solar system, but about stars and the galaxies. And the third one is about chemistry. And I showed them the periodic table, saying, okay, you did a lot of activities in science with matter. We're going to be focusing on the periodic table and understanding what it is. And as soon as I mentioned the periodic table, there was all kind of students say, okay, do we have to memorize the whole periodic table? Do we have to, is it going to be hard? Are the evaluation going to be tricky? So you could see that now they knew about the why and what they need to expect, and then they were receptive to the next level. Okay, we're going to learn these topics, and I share with them what kind of activities we will do, as well as what kind of evaluations we would do as well, just so that they can understand better. With respect to the periodic table, that was a big question. The whole idea was not about why we will do so. It was, okay, how we will do the learning. Because keep in mind that once you know why you do something, then you get excited. Your team gets excited, your classroom environment is exciting. Same reason why if you're part of a family and you say, okay, something's happening, or we want to take a vacation, and this is the situation, and this is why we do so. Once you share why you need to do something or you want to do something, then it's so much easier for people to rally behind your ideas. So that was the main reason of what I did today. It was to share with them, okay, learning will happen. And then the next part is when I outline all the parts, I shared why we would do so. I mentioned to them that because it's a high school, we have students coming from all over the areas. A lot of students are coming from out of the country. So the learning from different students are different. The knowledge of different students is different. We also have the fact that people nowadays, they go and learn so much online through videos, reading, podcasts. The same thing with you, if you have a team. You may lead a team, but team members may be very knowledgeable about topics that you don't know about or that you need help sometimes. So the whole idea is I shared, okay, this is what we're going to do, why we're going to do this. And I also left the door open saying, okay, when we do something and you find that it's a bit challenging, that's okay, I'm here for you. But if you feel it's a bit easy, then we need to keep the communication open. So that goes back to my first topic, learning about each other so that we can feel we belong in the group. The next step is now we're going to do some learning. May as well say, okay, now that we know we're going to learn and we know why we're going to learn, because they're in grade 9, they know it's part of their high school diplomas, they know what are the topic, and all they have to do now is say, okay, what are we going to learn? They know. So the next thing is tomorrow, my hope is to work on creating water filters. Then I say, well, it's an easy topic for grade 9 students. It is true, but it's not just about the water filter that I want to work with them. The whole idea is to build cohesion with the team so that we can look at it's called the engineering design. I'm gonna ask them to think of a water filter. Then On Friday, my plan is to have them build it, try it, and then after they tried it, I'm going to say, okay, let's go back to our seats. Let's see if you can improve your water filter. And then we're going to have a second try of that. And the reason for that is every time we think of science, you could think, well, it's an experiment. We get data and we analyze them. That's true. That is for the science, the scientific, what is it called? I said it today and I forget now. It's a scientific investigation process. There you go. Scientific investigation process. Usually you have a question, you define your variables, you get the information, and you analyze the data. And you always finish your scientific questions with the next step. When you have an engineering design, you have an idea and you test it. But the whole idea is not to do a prototype and test it. It's to look at the prototype, say, okay, what's the next step? And then you can try again. My plan is to go in the back of the school. We have a creek. We're going to get some water from the creek. I'm going to add some mud, some leaves, and a few other things. And the whole idea, it will be, how can we make the water better? Now, because it's grade 9, I'm not going to do look at bacteria. We're going to look at a whole bunch of different things. It will be very simple. We're going to look at the quality of the water, and I might look into the pH of the water. But the whole idea is for them to say, okay, there's a situation. Let's see if I can find the solution to improve on a water filter. So it's important because when you teach, you want them to realize that, okay, there's a goal, but there's an opportunity for me to make the outcome better. And it's important because in my science class, I want them to realize that we can't show something to students and make them believe that whatever the teacher is saying, that's the only possible outcome. The same thing if you work in a team. If you go and work for a team and then the leader says, well, this is the goal and the outcome, this is the way you're going to do this, you can't discuss, you can't improve anything, this is what it is, some people may not feel interested in the long term. Some people say, well, you don't need thinkers, you just need technicians to take care of your projects. In my science class, I want them to feel that science is always an improving aspect of life. It's not a finite piece of information. I was talking to that group of students, saying that when I was in high school, I finished in 1989. Windows was not invented. Science, we had similar sciences, but there was so much less invention to make the study of science easy. I remember we took hours and hours of drawing things under the microscope, observation, and now we can take pictures and videos. It's so much easier. So they get to a situation where they can do science differently. And we are about what? We are about almost 30 years later. Imagine in 30 years, they're 14 years old, 15 years old. So in 30 years, they're going to be 44, 45, right in the prime of their career. So think of everything that has not been invented yet that would exist at that time. These are all part of something we have to keep in mind. And as a science teacher, I cannot tell them that whatever we're going to do in class is the ultimate truth. There is some knowledge in what we're going to do, but also knowing that we can play with the knowledge to try to make life easier. And that is the second topic I wanted to share with you today. So we talked about learning, getting to know our community, about teaching, about teaching and being a leader in your team, making sure that your team members know what we're going to do and why we do what we're going to do. And my third segment is about success. So what does it mean, success? And I want to talk about what I did today, actually. And the best way to succeed, and this is what I did today, is to appreciate the present moment. And you guys say, well, life is so much more complicated than the present moment. That's true. However, the best way to succeed is to be at peace with the present moment, and be able to observe what is happening around you. So let me give you some examples. In the last week or so, I've been planning my classes, organizing data, forms, documents I needed to have for today. So I was ready with so I had done the course curriculum. I even went into files of my students to get to know more about them a little bit, so that I had a good idea of the type of people that I have. People from all around the area, the country, and even from other countries. Okay, so that's good. So how can I be more present when I lead, when I teach, or when I learn? So the whole thing is, once you are ready, and I know that we cannot be 100% ready and think of every possible things that could occur. As a high school teacher, I find it very hard. Now, I have to say that I know amazing kindergarten teachers, grade 1 teacher. They've been teaching for years and decades. And I know some of them, they know so well the little humans, that they've thought of so many things so that they can prevent chaos just because they have the experience. It takes a lot of time to get to that point. And the reason why that is that they are very ready when they meet their students, and they can foresee what could happen and then prevent issues to happen even before they happen, because they have the experience. And I know that some of you out there, if you are a leader or a teacher, you know as well as me that something can happen and you're not prepared, and it's out of the blue. However, if you feel that you're prepared, then it's so much easier to deal with the present moment. But you're going to say, what kind of things we need to deal with the present moment? Well, sometimes there might be an accident. Someone may have a new idea that changes the direction of where the project is going. Other things that could happen is someone gets promoted in your team, and you are losing a team member. You get new team members. In this class, sometimes we get new people coming in or people moving, and it changes the chemistry of the group. So these are unforeseeable possibilities. On the other hand, if you're ready when you are studying your class or you're part of a team, then you are present to deal with these things as they happen. So I'm going to share with you some of the points, some of the things I do with my classes to make it easier. So the first thing I do is I always have an agenda. And you're going to say, well, as a team, we have an agenda. When we meet, we know exactly what we're doing. But personally, what I do is when I go in the classroom, I go to the door and I welcome students coming in. By welcoming students coming in, I live the current moment to welcome them. So if you welcome new students with a smile, give them a smile back. If you're part of a team and you lead a team, if you smile at your team members, they're just going to smile back, and that's a good start. For that, you need to be present. You cannot think about 5 things to do later on. You're welcoming your team member. And to be honest with you, I do that when they come in, and I do that when they leave the classroom. Well, I do that most of the time. Every so often I get all busy. However, if you prepare and you feel prepared, then you have the energy and you can foresee the importance of being there for your student. The next thing I do, if I have a chance, so for example, I'm in a classroom, actually all my classroom, there are people teaching in that classroom right away, just before me. So that means that when I go in the classroom, it's a bit of a chaos. So the first thing I do, and I've done this for years, is I put the agenda on the board, put the date, say good afternoon, and I outline the few things we're going to do. And by outlining them, it does a few things. First of all, my students know what is to expect in the classroom. And second, it allows me to, regardless of what happens before I get in the classroom, I'm totally focused on these parts here. And when I write the agenda, I'm no longer thinking of my phone, social media, family, or other issues. When I write the agenda on the board, that is what I'm focusing on only. So if your team leader, what you can do is have an agenda, because if you have an agenda and you follow the agenda, what happens is the team members know that this is the most important aspect to do. It's not talking about the weekend and what you're going to do after work. That could be discussed another time. But when we're meeting in a set place, you mean business. And I think it's respecting the leaders, but also all the other members in your team. Something I like to also do in every classes, I give 4 to 5 minute break right in the middle of class. I don't believe that people can focus for 75 minutes in a row. So I know that they need a break at some point. I need a break as well. So in my agenda, I always have a spot where I say break. And the students know that, okay, we're going to do this, then there's a break, and then we're going to do something else. And just the fact that there's a place for a break, over the years, I've noticed that students are so much less uh, stressed. They're less stressed because they know what to expect, and they know that if the mind is all full, that they'll have a break where they can regroup, talk to their friends, go to the washroom without feeling they're gonna miss something, and then be able to work from them. So that is something to keep in mind. And good. So I've learned and I've done. I remember writing on the board 2012 and 2014, 2010. I even remember. So when I write the agenda, I remember those, like, oh, and sometimes if I think back and I write the wrong dates, and it's interesting. And every so often I make mistakes in the agenda, either with the dates, either with something that we have done the week before, just so that students raise their hands. Oh, the agenda, didn't we do that last week? Or are you sure it's the right date? So they feel that they're contributing even before we can start. That has been a winning strategy for me. The next part that I always share with my students is to see the importance of asking questions. In order to succeed, you need to feel comfortable to ask questions. So that means that you need to feel that you belong to the group. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing, but also feel comfortable enough to ask questions so you can have some clarification about some topics, but also have more information so you can do a better job at what they do. And some people say, well, my students sometimes are very quiet. Or people say, well, in my team, I have 3 people, they don't talk very much. But what I've realized is that having a culture of an inquisitive culture to ask questions and answer, it comes with everybody. So that means that I do ask questions and they answer the same way that they ask questions and I answer. And the beautiful thing about that is that people realize, okay, questions are good. Teachers have questions, students have questions, and then we can start helping each other. And helping each other is important because once you start appreciating that you can help each other, because questions doesn't mean that you're missing out on something or you're not fit for the group. It just shows that, okay, there's something we don't know, that if we can clarify that, we can get so much better. I didn't share that today, but I will share that in the next couple of days when something comes up. I always think of a Swiss cheese. Swiss cheese is a block of cheese with some holes in it. And learning is the same thing. If you're a learner, you have an idea of what what learning is all about, but there's some parts that you've missed in the past. Maybe you were sick, you missed a class, and you don't know the parts. If you ask questions, it allows you to fill those holes so you can have a solid block of cheese. Same thing happens if you are a teacher or a leader. There's things sometimes you don't know. You have a good idea of what your job is and what to do, but there's some holes because there's things you don't know. If you have a supportive group of leaders, what happens is that you can fill out those empty spots and then you have a full block of cheese. Same thing for success. Sometimes you think, well, I should be more successful, and you realize that it's not quite there yet. It's because there's questions that you haven't asked yet and you didn't get the answer. And I think that's very important. I do the analogy with the cheese, but it's basically our knowledge, our know-how, our mindset, our who we are as individual. If we can fill out this little empty space, we can speak so much more for our team, for our family, or for our classrooms. And this is the podcast I have for today. I know that I have a video portion. I still don't know how to put podcasts online in different places. That's part of my learning process. Thank you very much for being here about this information. I'm always happy to share what I know. If you have any questions, any clarification, a question, or an idea, don't hesitate to put them in the comments here on YouTube. And if you're on other platforms, don't hesitate to communicate with me. On this, have an excellent day, and thank you for being here. And be great, because I believe in you. Take care.